the key thing that the funder's looking for, either whether that's your own board or whether it's an external funder, is as I say, the investment potential for what they're putting the money in to do. So it's the realisation of that. So one of the key things at the outset of a project is to identify what you need to measure and what you think you can measure, and they may be different at the outset, and get from your funder very clearly what they expect to have measured. The how doesn't matter just yet, it's what they want and what they expect in terms of the realisation sort of post-project. So it's identifying what you think you need to measure, what you know you must measure, and then identifying a method of monitoring that and feeding that information into the project so you've got it there. I've seen lots of projects that 12 months on suddenly say, oh, heck, we should have been measuring that, and then try and run backwards almost. It's impossible. You cannot do it. So don't even try. It's virtually impossible. Do it at the outset. Also be very clear about what you're going to evaluate. What are the key things in terms of the benefits that you're trying to deliver? How will you measure them? And bear in mind there are hard measures and soft measures. Hard measures are usually easier to do, although they can be a bit of a pain, but those are just numbers, essentially. Soft measures are more difficult because those are about people's changing attitudes or opportunities, but they're equally valid. And you may feel that you're writing them in a very subjective way, but that's fine, because that's what it's all about, trying to change hearts and minds in that sense. But be clear at the outset, if you can, what you think you will deliver. Don't set yourself up to fail by saying, oh, I'll change the whole world. Try and almost limit it to what you know you can do. A good project manager will never take on responsibility for something they cannot manage. And again, a simple statement, but it happens time and time again. Be aware of an issue coming along. If you can manage it, take it. If you can't, deal with it in some other way. Either get somebody else to do it or certainly take it on board and manage it in a different way. But I think when you're going down the monitor evaluation route, as long as you've been clear about what you expect to measure, how you're going to measure it, you're then able to say whether or not the project succeeded at the end. And that is one of the things that people forget about in terms of, yes, we've done this, now let's do a post-implementation review and see what actually happened. What did we think was going to happen in terms of our monitoring and evaluation, and what actually did happen? And those two can be different. Hopefully they're the same, but they may not be. And then there's a further stage. So that's sort of a benefit evaluation of have we done what we said we were going to do? And if you haven't, try and understand why and what didn't go well in order to do that. And that's why it's often difficult midway through a project to accept scope creep, because you may end up delivering something you didn't set out to achieve. And in theory, that's a failure, but it isn't in that sense. It just looks that way on paper. And the final stage is benefit realisation. I've done a project, I've made these changes. Over the next 2 years, the following things will change so that it will realise and manifest itself in this way. Again, that's often difficult because funders will rarely give you money to monitor a realisation programme. But as an organisation, it's invaluable to you to get that information, because that forms the basis of your next bid writing. We did that and that's what happened. So you may well need to factor into your project planning some element of resource to make sure you can identify those things post-implementation, to make sure you can actually gather them and basically prove what you said you were going to do.